Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Ascension with A Course in Miracles. I am Laina Orlando, and I am so excited and honored to have you guys here. And of course, as always, um, our regulars, some of them pop in later. That's just how they roll. And I see that we have a new person here, Sandy. How are
Hi,
you?
I am a friend of Rose Gannon.
Oh, wonderful. I adore Rose. She is just one of those people that her commitment to learning from A Course in Miracles is, I just love it. I love it.
She just happened to mention that you were having this today, and I was like, excellent, excellent. There was a particular video you did long time ago, and it struck me so much that I went back and wrote it out word for word. And it was your very first course, I think, that you were explaining everything about the different levels. It was really good.
The Soul's Journey, because I do have it's a course that I offer. I'm in the middle of revamping everything on my website and where I host my courses. And speaking of Rose, there she is.
Hey.
And anyways, so I'm going to be moving some things around, but I think you're probably talking about the soul's journey because if we understand the six phases that we go through, they basically match what the Course in Miracles teaches is the development of trust. For us to be able to move out of trusting our ego and trusting God, we have to go through specific stages. So that's probably what you're thinking about, Sandy.
Yeah. It was fantastic. And to me, it was just perfect for somebody that didn't know a lot about ACIM, which I am very young at it. I start the book, and then I start with a group, and we'll read the book for a while, but the only thing I've done faithfully is I did do a 365 daily thing with somebody. I can't remember who, but that was a couple of years ago. With who, Rose?
Is that Tina Spalding?
Yeah.
Mm,
So that's the only thing that I've done that was one whole completed ACIM.
Yes, there are so many teachers. There are incredible teachers, and so many who begin the study feel so compelled to share what they've learned. And that's what happened to me is once I had my experience with God and knowing myself as one with all that is, I basically was completely, I used to say guided, because I felt that it was like I was being told what to do. And I had to leave my old career behind and moved out of being a successful realtor in the area that I was in. And I opened up a center. I didn't know what the heck a center. I was told you're going to open up the Center for Awareness. You're going to teach the power of awareness. And I had no idea what any of that was. I'd never been a coach before. A little bit in real estate. I coached new realtors, but it was nothing like what I was told, and I was given a course to teach. Until this day, it's what I teach from. And what I realized years later, as people would come and ask me, is the power of awareness based on A Course in Miracles? And I was like, I don't even know what A Course in Miracles is. Then I did a little research, and I thought it was something Marianne Williamson had written about. And then I was told, it's not time for you to study A Course in Miracles. And then I was told 4 years later, from being given the power of awareness, now you're ready for A Course in Miracles. Awesome. Because the power of awareness in that course that you saw, the soul's journey, it was for me to begin to experience the shift in consciousness. It was for me to get clear that everything is a choice between love and fear, between the voice of God and the voice of the ego. I needed to know all of that before I received guidance to study A Course in Miracles, because I needed to have my experience. Oh, I feel the emotions coming out, because as everything, as I've experienced everything with God, things begin to happen that I have no clue how they're going to fit into the bigger picture until I have, the hindsight to observe it. And this has been a year where lots of changes have happened in my life. And now I'm seeing how some of the pieces are fitting in. And the messages that I'm getting now are just so amazing for what I'm to do in 2024.
Wonderful.
Because it's time for those of us who are ready to own that we are the embodiment of the Christ consciousness on this planet. We have a role to play, and 2024 is the line in the sand where we are going to see all of the darkness that the ego has assisted us in experiencing, for those who are ready to choose to love it, to love the darkness for the experience that it's been, to accept it. Oh, this gave me the ability to learn about fear and anger and jealousy and lack and limitation and control and manipulation. Oh, wow. Okay. Been there, done that. Now I want something different, because without complete awareness and love of the contrast of what we no longer want to experience, we cannot claim the power that we have to then co-create and manifest with total and complete compassion, integrity, honesty, transparency, and humbleness. Because if we cannot own that we fed the darkness, we cannot claim the power of the sword. Because with a sword, you can kill somebody with a sword, or you can cook with it. You can use it to feed the people. You can use it to cut the weeds, to plant a garden. So we have to see both sides of the power that we have. And 2024 is a year that more of the darkness is being revealed, so that we can look at it. Those who are ready, those who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, those who are ready to say, yes, I contributed to that darkness because I was unconscious. I contributed because I was under the spell of the ego, and I was only thinking about me. I was completely selfish. I was completely ignorant, and I was completely under a trance. We have to see the consequence of the trance so that we can go through the transformation that allows us to transcend all these trans words that allows us to transcend the ego, which means we end the trance. We just have to end the trance that we're in. So this book that has been wanting to be written through me for all these years, it's bubbling. It's like, okay, bitch, it's time for you to get it out there. Consciousness talks to me like that. It uses so many crazy words because it tells me you cannot be offended by a single word. You cannot give power to anything. It's time that we own who we are, be the light that we are, and acknowledge that the darkness is only because we didn't shine our light. That's it. There's no other way. Darkness and raping children and abuse of power and countries that were at war, the military industrial complex, the medical system that was all about keeping people sick, the education system that was about programming the children to lose their creativity and become, little compliant soldiers, robots, exactly, until we see that it was the lack of our light shining, meaning the lack of our awareness of who we are, that allowed us to go into a trance, and we were manipulated, but only because we participated willingly in the desire to incarnate and have that experience. So that in 2024, which is that line in the sand, that the completion of the first 5 years of this decade, we can say, I am done with that toy. I'm putting that toy down. I've outgrown it. I played the roles. I've done all the parts. And now I'm ready for the new. And the new, my goodness, the new is a world where we operate in transparency and honesty, knowing our worth, knowing that we're powerful creators, knowing how fun it is to experience the material world, but we use everything for the greater good of all. Nothing will be done in service to self, because everything will be done in service to all. And that is what actually today we are going to continue. We've been studying in A Course in Miracles. So if you guys have your books, go to, let's see, it is in chapter 30. And I never rush through the teachings of the Course, because these what I call transmissions are opportunities for Laina's ego to move to the side, and consciousness, God, Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call it, basically just takes over and shares what it needs to share. And today is episode 130. It's amazing. 130 episodes, 3+ years doing these weekly Wednesday transmissions. It's so exciting. Oh, it's just so exciting. I cannot get over how exciting it is that we are moving into this new era, into what the Course in Miracles calls a happy dream. But it's only going to be experienced that way by those who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. The willingness to acknowledge how powerful we are, whether we knew it or not, doesn't matter. What matters is that we come to acknowledge our power given to us by the Creator to create like it creates. That is how powerful we are. Course in Miracles made it very clear to me. The only difference between God and us, and I'm going to repeat it twice because it bears repeating, is that God created us. We did not create God. That's the only difference. God created us. We do not create God. That means we cannot create God. God is already created, but we create like God because God created us in its image, imagined us to be just as powerful. God is a God of equality. All is treated equally. All is imbued with the same power. Therefore, we could not have been created to be less powerful than God, because then we would not be in its image. And when we put these elemental basic things logically, and we move through the scale of consciousness, we move to the realm that we lift our consciousness to see things, we see reason. To reason like God is such a high frequency. The majority of humanity operates in the lower dimensions of fear, operates from the root base chakra of fear, meaning we're operating still in survival mode. And we have been in that mode for thousands of years. Jesus came to try and say, hey, people, wake up. And to me, Jesus showed up 2,000 years ago when humanity was at the lowest frequency, literally operating from that base frequency of the first chakra, total fear. And Jesus's teachings, as well as the teachings of so many other amazing teachers, have been helping humanity little by little raise our frequency. But it's taking us, 2,000 years to realize, love your neighbor as yourself. I mean, did it really need to take us 2,000 years to stop wars, to let go of hierarchies, to stop listening to these nonsense teachings that God is to be feared? Well, clearly we needed those 2,000 years. But things are speeding up right now because humanity has reached the level of the heart chakra, meaning that we are at a place now where there are enough of us who are willing to love what is, love all of it without judging it, because that is what the practice of forgiveness is all about. Course in Miracles teaches that we are forgiving what never happened. I mean, to somebody caught in their mind, the comment would be, what do you mean what never happened? I have pictures and videos, and it's on the front page of the newspaper, the wars and the atrocities, and it's recorded in the records of history, all of these horrible things that we've done. Well, yes, that's how the ego would respond. It is real. Look, I have evidence. But the heart does not do that. The heart says it happened in your imagination, because you can imagine anything you want. And because God created us in its image to imagine whatever we want, and in the imagination, we experience the creation of it, we did go through periods of incarnations, what appears to be incarnations, to have experiences of separation, to hurt each other, to do all those things, to feel lack and limitation, and to be born into societies and families and places, cultures that placed us in specific roles that told us, like Indian, they don't do that now, but too many still believe in that we have caste systems, that if you're at the bottom, you can never do a job at the top. So we have had the ability to imagine all of that. And when you come to do the work of the heart, and you can only do the work of the heart by doing the work of shadow work. Shadow work means you got to unpack your fears. Where did you begin to believe that you're less than the magnificent being that you are? What are you basing the foundation of your essence on? Well, it all stems in childhood, when they begin to tell us what gender we are, what roles come with those genders, or when now, like they do, gender confusion. When we don't know who we are as a man or a woman and understand the energetic component of being masculine or feminine, all of those things have been so eroded. And we have to look at that. How did we get so confused that our first chakra operates in such tightness and tension, and all that most people can do with their first chakra is think that I just need to get sex. I need to be validated by who's going to have sex with me. That it's all about thinking that you are just a sexual being, that's all that you're worth. And that's why children are abused, the incest in families, this incredible craziness of abusing little children to confuse them, not only about who they are sexually, what their genders are, but we have, and this has been going on, by the way, for thousands of years. We're just being more exposed to what has the consequences of that way of being, that way of thinking, but it's been going on for thousands and thousands of years. The abuse of children is recorded in our even in our Bibles, where we would sacrifice children, where these things were somehow acceptable. So we've got thousands of years of that recorded history. Well, we have to face it and go, okay, we experienced that, but it never happened. And this is what it means. It never happened to affect the soul. It could not change the soul of who we are. It was an experience that was like a costume, an overlay on an actor. The actor is not the costume. The experience is not the soul. The soul, the essence, the spirit, whatever you want to call it, the truth of who we are was never, has never been, never can be affected by the imaginings that give us the experience, that have us think that we are human and separate from one another and God. The work of the Course in Miracles is to separate these two thought systems, to look at them clearly. What is love? What is fear? What is true? What is illusion? What is God? What is ego? Because until we see it clearly, not only in our mind, understand it, but in our heart, choose which one are we going to embody. This is the work of becoming a teacher of God, of becoming a master of your own creation, of accepting the power that we have and then embodying it. And how does that show up in the world? Well, as someone who trusts that only God is real, who knows I and the Father and Mother God are one, and can walk around with that awareness and that embodiment of that truth with zero shame. I was at first scared to tell people, "Ooh, I and God are one." So in the beginning of my journey, when I began to share that, and the only friends that I had at that time when I started my journey were my Christian friends. And the comments that I got were, "Who do you think you are? Why would God pick you? Why would Jesus show up and talk to you?" these were my Christian friends, and we went to church and we sang songs about, God and Jesus and accepting Jesus as our savior. And I thought they would be so excited that I felt it, but is not quite that way. That became such a crazy experience. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't even tell my Christian friends that I, God are one. It's like we're supposed to believe that we are one with God, but not you, only Jesus. So anyways, it was an interesting time. Then we have to do the work. The shadow work continues. We've got to look at that second chakra. The second chakra is where we hold all of our emotions. There's emotional baggage that we have to unpack and cut the cords of that baggage like we would cut the weights from a hot air balloon so it can rise. We must see the density of holding on to the lies that we grew up believing, that who do you think you are? Children are supposed to be seen and not heard. Do as I say, not as I do. You are less than. Father knows best. Mother knows, some, but not as much as father. We got programmed with TV shows and all kinds of things that allowed us to become confused about who we really are, that over time created these ideas that emotions, we shouldn't express them and we shouldn't talk about them. And if you're feeling them, well, then we get medicated. Then you got to numb yourself. And again, this has been going on for thousands of years. You don't like how you feel, you get drunk. You don't like how you feel, you go beat somebody up so that you can feel you have power over them. All coming from a consciousness that has been disempowered, because to have the 3D egoic experience that we have had, we were given the ability to perceive ourselves as separate. Now, there's nothing wrong with having an ego mind that sees each other as separate, as long as the ego is in service to God, using the separation in service to the extension and the expression of God consciousness, Christ consciousness. So for me to be here talking to what appears to be separate people, there's nothing wrong with having this experience when we are helping one another. But when we use the experience to say Father knows best, or the boss is the only one who's right, or the president gets to decide what everybody does, or the dictator, or the doctor, or the teacher, when we give power to one over the rest, then we are operating from a sense of confusion in our second chakra. Our emotions get so jumbled up and so completely misguided that we're always looking for an idol outside of ourselves to tell us what to do, because we don't know what to do with ourselves. So that, and we just covered that in the previous episodes when we talked about the chapter. It's still in chapter 30. There was an entire section called, and this is such a beautiful thing. So in chapter 30, start with episode, let me see, what episode was that? I want to say 95 or 96. So if you go to my YouTube channel and you want to go through this entire chapter 30, it starts around episode 96. And we are moved into section number 3, which was all about idols. We have to move beyond idols. Idols is to believe that there's anything outside of us that has power over us, or to believe that a voice in our head, the voice of the ego, has power over us. This is a very challenging thing to do, because we believe all the thoughts that we have. That's why it's so difficult to wake up, because we think we're right. When we're believing there's something wrong with us, when we're believing somebody has power, when we believe that the government can decide what we do or don't do with our money, that the doctor knows better for what happens in our physical body, when we believe that, it's very difficult to override that, because to override what we think is true, we must be very confident in our ability to say, maybe I was wrong. And we've been conditioned to, you can't be wrong. If you're wrong, you're a loser. You're going to go to the principal's office. If you got it wrong, you're not going to pass the grade. If you got it wrong, you're a loser. You're an idiot. You're stupid. So the ego is trained into avoiding at all costs being wrong, which has caused most of humanity to become so righteous that we've been defending information that is not true, but it stems from a second chakra that is completely emotionally immature. So when who you are gets confused in the first chakra, your physical being cannot be grounded in who you really are. Then you jumble up the emotions. Now you are always protecting yourself because you're afraid that the world is out to get you, because you've been programmed into thinking that that's the way it is. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. And we grow up with this sense of always kind of being behind, having to work so hard to prove ourselves. And let me ask you, does God need to prove itself? No, it doesn't. We need to learn what God is so that we can find out that we were made in the image of a creative source. And then we need to prove to ourselves how powerful we are by moving through the process of transformation. We've got to question, we got to be willing to override our own righteousness and be curious enough about, could there be another way? Could there be another thought? Could there be another side to this? Could there be another perspective? Because when we move into curiosity, we're actually moving into a more mature sense of self. So we're beginning to override the emotions, the feeling bad about being wrong, into the third chakra, which is the chakra of our beliefs. And the third chakra is actually at the place within our solar plexus where we receive intuitive knowledge. We don't receive intuitive knowledge in our head. We feel it in our gut, a gut instinct. So the third chakra, which is the energy center that holds all of our beliefs, is the place that has been filled with misinformation, where we believe things about ourselves that are not true. This is where the ego takes shape in our human experience, because we're holding on to thoughts, ideas, perceptions, beliefs that are absolutely not true. There are some in there that are true, but the majority that have us think that we are just a separate human being, a peon, that we need to idolize, worship idols, those beliefs that create stories about who we are block, in essence, create a dense wall between us and our intuitive knowingness. So we have to be able to go through there and question our thoughts. But you can't question your thoughts if you're an emotional mess. If you're all emotional and all reactive and upset and worried and scared and operating from fear because you don't know who you are, if these lower two chakras have not been addressed, we haven't done the work of cleaning up whatever is down there. If we haven't done that work, then we are not prepared to go to the heart. You cannot enter the heart unless you are ready. Now, let me say this. Many of us, I know I did, have experiences where our heart opens up, even if it's briefly, to give us the knowingness of how much better it feels to live from the heart. But then we've got the thoughts and the beliefs and the emotions and the misguided understanding of who we are that runs the show, that we then have to address and correct. We have to go through the process of looking at these things. And, Course in Miracles gives us 365 lessons to really put into motion a process of total and complete rewiring of who we think we are. Exercises, processes, mantras or prayers, whatever you want to label them, of what to say so that you know the truth of who you are. And I have read every single one of those lessons, all 365. I share what they mean, how I put them into practice into my own life. I give examples, and they're all on my YouTube channel. So it's all there available for anybody who wants to go through the 365 lessons. If you choose to, they're all available. Go to my YouTube channel, and it's Laina Orlando. I highly, highly recommend, because I know I'm going to this year. I'm going to start with lesson number 1 again, starting in the new year, because I am really clear that it's going to be a very tumultuous year, very tumultuous, because enough of humanity is already aware that there's a lot of darkness, and enough of the beings that have been doing the work. Course in Miracles has been here for over 50 years. Jesus's teachings have been here for over 2,000 years. The Buddha's teachings for us to understand the power of our mind has been here for over 2,500 years. We have teachings that are older than that. We can go to Lao Tzu's teachings. I mean, there's so many beings that have incarnated or appeared in our dream of separation, however you want to see it, that have been giving us truth, pointing to the truth, so that we would be prepared at this time when the line is being drawn in the sand to make the choice of what do we want to experience for the next 26,000 years, 26,000 years in the dream. Now, the Course in Miracles wants us to go beyond the dream. So where, depending on where we are in consciousness, then, there's not even 26,000 years coming. But if we're still operating in a sense of separation, there's going to be 26,000 years coming, because these are cycles that we have all in consciousness agreed to experience. It's like grades in school. We're in 3rd grade right now, and those who are ready to graduate are going to go to 4th grade. And if you're not ready to graduate, well, then you repeat 3rd grade. We are at that moment in time that we have been preparing for. Are we going to repeat a world of separation where the ego runs things, where there's hierarchy, where the fear is the primary motivator, where manipulation and lack of love are normal? Well, then you're going to sign up to repeat 3rd grade. Nothing wrong with that, because you're the creator of your own reality. So if you value that level of density more than you value light and love and collaboration and transparency, then you get to repeat what it is that you value. But if you are curious about what life would be like when we operate from the heart chakra, then what happens is you're going to move beyond the throat chakra, or you're going to move to the throat chakra, which is you have to walk the talk. You have to speak the truth. The ego has blocked our chakras, our throat chakra. We've been speaking lies. We've been about ourselves and others. We have to clean that up. This is why at this time, so many are speaking truths. And they've been doing that forever. Look, Jesus got crucified for speaking truth. Many have been burnt at the stake for speaking truth. But today, we're going through the exact same thing. We are crucifying those truth speakers by labeling them conspiracy theorists, or by shunning them on social media. We are attempting, this is just what the energy of the ego does, is to shut down those who are attempting to open the eyes and the ears for those who are ready to see and hear the truth. So those who have lost their fear are now using their throat chakra to speak the truth, because we are under no laws but God's. And we are only doing the work that God has placed on our heart to do. And every one of us is a piece of the puzzle. Now, we are the piece of the puzzle that on one side, think of those 2-sided puzzles. My kids used to have those 2-sided puzzles, which were really tricky, because on one side is one design, on the other side is another design. And you got to make sure that you put the piece on the side that fits both sides, not just the one side. So it's a kind of fascinating thing. But we have a piece of the puzzle. But is the piece of your puzzle going to continue to perpetuate the story of limitation and separation? Or are you the piece of the puzzle that is going to bring the light of God, the truth of who we are, to show that there is a happy dream that we can co-create? But you can't move into this next dimension if you're afraid to speak the truth. If you can't talk about God, if you can't speak that in a way that honors that all beings are equal, if you still have fear of the government, if you still fear the systems that could punish you, if you're afraid of that, you're valuing that as having more power than God having power in you, and you being the power of God that is called for at this time. So many, 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 many beings. Look at Martin Luther King Jr. lost his life because he was teaching us that we are all equal. Well, that's an inconvenient truth to the ones who want to perpetuate the story of hierarchy, of divisiveness, of differences. Of course, they've got to kill him off. I mean, we've all been to movies. We know you got to kill off some of the good people before some move into the place of the energy of anger, because we got to move through these levels of emotional consciousness. Right there, our second chakra holds those emotions. Those who get angry, those who get upset, those who begin to move into the realm of, we got to speak the truth here, and I'm not afraid to speak it, even if I lose my life, are literally of a pretty high frequency, bringing about the change that is necessary. Now, if you can speak your truth and you're not afraid and you're not feeling called to be on the front lines in the medical movement, or on the front lines of the political movement, or on the front lines of the religious movement, or whatever it is, then your role is to hold the truth, hold the frequency of truth, knowing it in your heart with unwavering conviction that all is happening for the greater good of all. If you can sit in your living room peacefully, totally, completely in the knowingness that what is happening, the unraveling of the dream of the story, of the illusion, of the lies, if you can sit and watch and you know the headlines and you know what's happening, and you can send love to every being, if you can thank them for the roles that they're playing, if you can honestly say that you have zero fear in your heart because you know that this is all as it should be, if you understand the birthing process, you know that the birth, what happens prior to holding that baby in your arms, is pretty freaking painful. If you have popped a couple of babies out of your body, or even one baby out of your body, you know it is dark before the dawn. No different than when you're going through a tunnel and it is dark before you see the light again. We are at that moment in time where we're seeing the contraction of the birth process. We're seeing humanity just tightening up. We're seeing the darkness, the pain of the process taking place. Either we are going to say, oh no, I can't handle this, this is terrible, or you're going to be observing it, knowing this is necessary. How else can we birth the new if we don't go through the birthing process, which means it's the end of an era. It's the end of being not a parent so that we can then become a parent. So let me get into this section. We are in section number 5. Again, I am in chapter 30, titled The New Beginning, because it is the new beginning. Course in Miracles is about preparing our mind so that we could get to the new beginning for those who want it. Free will all the way, free will. Those who want to use their free will to stay in darkness, they can do that. They'll repeat third grade, they'll repeat third density. It's okay. But if you're ready to move on to something new that's never been before, and you're willing to be curious enough, well, God, what would you have me do to bring that about? Then you must empty your mind of the old so that God can inspire you with ideas for the new. You cannot bring the new if you believe in the old. So we have to go through this transformative process. So I love the title of this next section. And it's very simple. The only purpose. We really have to understand our only purpose. So the real world, and again, I'm reading from A Course in Miracles, and I'll tell you what sentence I'm on, just so you're following with me. So chapter 30, The New Beginning, section 5, The Only Purpose, sentence number 1. The real world is the state of mind in which the only purpose of the world is seen to be forgiveness. What that means is that we have done the work to be able for this to make sense. You have done the work. You have owned that you were born you incarnated here. You chose to be here at this time to be part of this ascension process. You did the work of the shadow work. This is what Carl Jung taught us about. You got to face the shadows. You did the emotional clearing of the first, second chakra. You've looked at that third chakra, all of the beliefs that block us from accessing intuition. So now the real world, you can observe it, is the state of mind, because now your mind is clear, in which the only purpose that the world has is for forgiveness. Now, if you have done the work to bring you to speak the truth of who you are, because you know who you are, then you know that your work is forgiveness. This is your only purpose, to forgive the world that appears to have done something that it never did. It never did. The world never did affect your soul. The world never touched your spirit. Never. We blocked our ability to access spirit because we filled our mind with untruths. We've got to get really clear about the separation of these two things. Did it happen? Yes. Did it affect your spirit? No. We forgive it for it. They didn't know what they were doing. Anybody who's operating thinking that they're separate and have power over others are in a trance. They are in an illusion, in a delusion. So those who have the eyes to see, okay, this is the way the game gets played out. We have this side and this side, and the sides are only those who are unconscious and those who are conscious of what's happening. That's it. Those aware of the game and those completely in the game thinking that the game is real. So you, me, if we stand at that level of consciousness, we don't need to be in the front lines of the physical world battling anybody. We stand basically we are on the periphery of the game, observing it, forgiving everybody who's playing the role, because we have forgiven ourselves for having forgotten who we are. Once we are clear that we were made in the image of a creator to be a creative being, then we're beginning to accept the truth of who we are. We're grounding ourselves in that truth. We clear the emotions that have us be reactive, and we use every irritation as an invitation to see the ego's motivation. So we stop letting emotions run our lives. We question the beliefs because we get curious and humble enough to say, well, maybe I was wrong about what I believed. Now we move into the place where the heart opens up. And when the heart is open, what that means, you're not protecting yourself. Now you can speak your truth, because the heart, we begin to close down our ability to feel love when, as a small child, we become afraid of love. When we fear our parents, who are our only example of love when we're little, who we think is there to protect us, but they're the ones spanking us, they're the ones punishing us, they're the ones abusing us physically, emotionally, mentally. They're the ones telling us that our art is not good, or that we're not smart enough, or that we're not whatever, that we're a disappointment to the family. We, as children, block our heart. It is if you think about it, it is a protective mechanism. Ooh, that hurt. Let me not believe that. And then we begin to build layers and layers, walls around our heart, to the point that nobody, as an adult that operates in the illusion, really knows what love is, because love then becomes transactional. I'm giving you something so I can get something. So we don't know what unconditional love is until we begin to remove the conditions, and then we begin to love everything as it is. And that is what the process of forgiveness is. To forgive is to recognize that love is here to flow no matter what. And when you can love the people who indoctrinated you and taught you things that are not true, then you really understand what forgiveness is all about. Because you realize, oh, you did what you did because you didn't know what you were doing. I did what I did because I didn't know what I was doing. But now I know, and the truth has set me free. So I'm going to forgive you, because if I don't forgive you, I'm not free. I'm going to repeat that again. If I don't forgive you, I cannot be free, because to hold you in responsibility for my unhappiness, I'm tethered to you. No matter what you're doing, I can't get away from you because I got to protect myself from you. So I'm constantly worried about what you're doing, what you're saying, where you're going. So we've got to understand the processes that we go through. So it's very simple. You will know you are part of this real world. You're part of this fourth grade, fourth dimension, because we're not ready for the fifth dimension yet. We've got to go through the transformation. And we're going to use the next however many hundreds of years. If you want to know more about how that works, then you need to listen to some of the channelers who are channeling truth in what is the book called? The Disappearance of the Universe. There's channeled information in there that was spoken to the author, and it says that it's probably going to be 400 or 500 years, because we need quite a few generations to stop believing in separation and idols and hierarchy before there's enough people who are believing the truth of our equality, before we really truly experience that total peace on earth, before the teachings of A Course in Miracles are really some of the most valued teachings, because they are all about training our mind to think rightly, to think lovingly. So to get to that new earth, we have to become the change we want to see in this world. We need to embody this truth, walk it, talk it, breathe it. Don't be shaken by the world that is being dismantled. Don't get worried about, don't go into fear when the banking system collapses, when the political system goes haywire. It's already kind of crazy. Don't go into fear when the medical world wants to tell you that you've got to be put into some kind of a quarantine again, go through this pandemic story again. You've got to hold your light. And it doesn't matter what happens out there. In here, you've got to build your house on solid rock. You've got to know the truth of who you are, because you're not here. You're not here to make peace with the world. You're here to bring the peace of God and show the world what that looks like. And it all goes inside. The forgiveness happens inside. The new earth is being created inside first. And then we become an example of what that looks like for those who are going to be wigging out. And then they'll say, how are you so peaceful when the banking system just shut down? How are you so peaceful when, we discovered that our elections have been a fraud for hundreds, if not thousands of years? Jesus came to teach us these things. He was speaking inconvenient truth, so he was crucified. And then his death was used to tell us, well, you don't want to be so godly, because look what's going to happen to you. You're going to get crucified. We've got to move through that immature thinking and be willing to crucify what the ego is all about, so that we can have that resurrection that Jesus was teaching us is possible. But not when you drop the body, but while you are in a body. We must resurrect the truth that has been inside of us dormant. We must allow it to come forward and move through us, so that our words, our deeds, our actions, our thoughts are all congruent with the truth of who we are. And are we playing a game? Yes, we are. You are not from this world. You're a character in this world. So get to know the character that you are. Love the role that you're playing. Be grateful that you're a man, that you're a woman, that you're whatever you are, gay, straight, it doesn't matter, that you were born in this culture or that culture, that you're this color. It doesn't matter, because it's the perfect peace that God needed to bring about a specific message that only you can deliver. So we have to get ourselves totally and completely in alignment with, what does God think? What does God want me to share? What does God want to say? Not my will, but yours be done. When that can be said with joy, not like, oh my God, I got to give my power to God now. Well, let me tell you what, you have no power if it wasn't for God. And it's aligning ourselves with God that allows us to experience the power that this world most needs now. And the world that I know you want is only possible when you claim that power, and then you embody it fully. You express it completely. Absolutely no fears, concerns, worries whatsoever. You have to be willing to be absolutely 100% the expression of what love really is about. And it starts with forgiveness. Sentence number 2 says, fear is not its goal. The goal of forgiveness, it's not fear. For the escape from guilt becomes its aim. So the ego says, oh, I'm going to forgive you, but I'm going to forget, because the ego wants you to feel guilty about the fact that you didn't use your power. The ego wants us to feel guilt about having, forgiven somebody for what they did. I shouldn't forgive them. I should hold them in contempt of what they did. So, because the ego is backwards. So fear is not the goal of forgiveness, for the escape from guilt becomes its aim. So you got to understand what the ego is all about. The value of forgiveness is perceived and takes the place of idols. When forgiveness becomes more important than fearing, than idolizing people who you think have power or control, which are sought no longer for their gifts, are not held dear. So this ties into what we've already looked at in previous episodes. So we created idols and we said, okay, government, you tell me what to do. And then what did we do? Because this is so important that we understand. We created a legal system where a judge decides if you're guilty or not. And then we've got all of these prosecutors who are going to condemn the guilty party. And then people feel bad that innocent people go to jail because we give power away. So when it says here, we've given these idols power to decide things, and then we accept their gifts of a judge outside of us deciding if we're guilty or not guilty, if we were right or wrong about the situation. So we've learned to give power away, and others get to decide who's right, who's wrong. So we are bringing all of that back. Eventually, we're not going to have a legal system. In a new earth where everybody operates in transparency and we are honest and we operate from love and gentleness, and what justice system do you need? We would all come together and say, hey, did you do this? Did you walk into my house and take something from my house? Then the one who did it would say, yes, you know what? I did. I was hungry. I'm so sorry. I didn't call you first, or I'm so sorry. And then the one whose house was entered into would say, brother, sister, I forgive you, because I'm not going to carry the weight of holding you in seeing you less than how God sees you and deciding that you're guilty and you're bad. We're not going to play that game. But to get to a society that doesn't have a medical system that keeps us sick, that doesn't have a justice system that keeps us guilty and feeling inferior or superior to others, that we don't have an education system that trains us out of our creativity, to get to that world, we have to know that we are the bringers of it. So we've got to become the first ones who begin to forgive the insanity. Turn on the news and just watch the shit show and go, you know what? Thank you for playing the role. I forgive you. I forgive you because I did the same thing. I forgive you because I participated in that insanity. When we can look at the outside and forgive it, it's because internally we have matured enough, have done enough of the work to bring about the awareness that this is telling us right here. I'm going to jump back into the previous, this was from episode 127. This is in the previous section in paragraph number 7. The first sentence of paragraph number 7 said, and this is in section number 4, salvation is a paradox indeed. Until we understand the paradox that we are in the world, but we're not of it, that we're non-physical energy appearing as physical, until we understand that this is a dream that has no power over us, we don't understand paradox. We are not going to experience salvation. So we are going through all of the training that the Course in Miracles has offered us so that we can get our mind to come to the place of reason that we're thinking like God thinks, which means we need to know what God knows. And God only created love, so God knows only love. And if God doesn't hold any of us guilty, and look at what we've done, look at what we've done to this world, this planet, this beautiful creation of God's. If God is not punishing us for that, why would we hold anybody guilty for coming into our house and stealing, or taking food because they were hungry? So many things have to shift and change before we can experience the co-creation of the new earth. So back into section 5 in the only purpose, sentence number 4, no rules are idly set and no demands are made of anyone or anything to twist and fit into the dream of fear. That is such a powerful statement. Jesus told us when he gave us A Course in Miracles that there is absolutely no rules that we have to follow to be able to operate in a happy dream. And there's really nothing that we need to do that have been idly set. God is very specific with its rules, with its laws for creation. Everything is created for the expansion of the kingdom, meaning that the rules that government sets or school sets or bosses set, they're idly set. They're set up and they change them. I mean, look at the laws. We're making them up one day and we change them the next day. And one administration changes the rules of another administration. Why? Because they're operating with a world of it's purely selfish and greedy. What's going to serve me best? So when we give our power away to rulers who change the rules and the laws because they're idly set up to benefit them, we're going to suffer, because then one administration is going to change the things from another administration to suit their purpose. That's why we can't get ahead, because it's all about who is deciding what happens to the rest based on what is in their best interest. And humanity has to face that that's the way government has been operating for a very long time. Not all, but most. And we've got to understand that we give them power when we are not paying attention. When we follow their rules that are idly set, when we follow their rules that are selfishly set, that it's benefits some and not all, then we are going to experience the consequences. So no rules are idly set and no demands are made of anyone or anything to twist and fit into the dream of fear. God created no laws that says you have to experience fear. So when the government sets up a rule, when the medical system sets up a rule that if you don't follow it, you should be afraid because you're being a bad person and you should be guilty for getting grandma sick, it's the ego. You've got to understand, God does not set rules idly. All rules that God said, the laws, God doesn't even set rules, God sets laws, are about love, are about you are a powerful being. Illness is not part of your reality unless you're choosing to believe it. And if you choose to believe that you can get sick, well, then those who create rules and idly set them about what is okay and what is not okay to happen to you, well, you will experience the fear. You're going to go through that discomfort. So we are being told here, instead, there is a wish to understand all things created as they really are. This is, we have to understand our only purpose is to begin to wake up. And instead of following all those rules and laws and regulations that have been created that shift and change to benefit some and hurt others, instead, there is a wish, there is a desire, there is a curiosity inside of us to understand all things created as they really are. God, there's got to be another way. The outside world is a shit show. Things come and go, things change. I want stability. I want to be grounded in truth. What is the truth here? And that's why we get these teachings that teach us the truth, but we have to have the ears to see and the eyes to see it. If we're not willing to question the outside world, we cannot be grounded in the inner knowing that brings about the peace that passes all understanding. The human world cannot understand the peace of one who is living in alignment with Christ consciousness. Because in alignment with Christ consciousness, you're not afraid of anything. Oh, you're going to crucify my body for speaking the truth? Okay. And then the rest of the world goes, oh, wow, that was a hero. Jesus wasn't a hero. Jesus was simply showing us what all of us are capable of. But do we have the courage or not? Well, to have the courage, you got to do that internal work. You got to move through those chakras, clean them up, and get them to be back in alignment with the truth of who we are. The next sentence, number 6, and this is the final sentence. And it is recognized that all things must be first forgiven and then understood. I had no idea how I did not know what real forgiveness was when I began to practice it. I thought I knew, well, I'm going to forgive them and that's going to make me feel better. I'm going to forgive them and I'll be in alignment with God. But I did it because I was following the rules of the teachings that I knew for me were the truth. Then I began to understand the power of forgiveness. Because when you release somebody from your ego's decision to make them guilty, to make them feel bad for what they did to you, when you decide, you know what, brother, sister, I don't know what anything is for. I'm just not going to hold you in judgment. I'm not going to make you feel less than. I'm not going to crucify you in my mind or to your face or whatever. I then began to understand what the only purpose that all of us have is all about. Because when you forgive as Christ did, as God wants us to forgive, we really truly feel this incredible love, this incredible peace radiates through us. The heart chakra just opens up like a lotus flower, and you just feel freedom. You feel liberation. You feel totally and completely in love with all things. Because this began to be my reality when I began to forgive my former husband, Ken. Because as those of you who watch my videos or know my story or been in my classes and have heard me talk about these things ad nauseum, I share my life experiences, that those were my lessons. Those were my classrooms. And when Ken began to get caught up in his ego, and the short story is, we came together with such an amazing relationship, and he came to give me one of the greatest gifts ever, which was to understand unconditional love. And he did it. The way that it happened is he began, after we got married, to feel his unhealed emotional fears. He began to feel, oh, this is my wife. And his 2 previous wives had cheated on him. So when I became wife and that belief hit that 3rd chakra, oh, this is a wife. Oh, what do wives do? Wives cheat. And then it began to cover his intuitive knowingness. No, this is a woman that I'm in love with. That's why I married her. Because he couldn't stay with the love that he had for me, he allowed the ego, through fear, activated his emotional wounds from childhood, watching dad cheat on mom, knowing the pain mom went through when she was being cheated on, activated in him fear of being cheated on. And it wasn't long after we got married that I became the potential cheating wife, even though I never did anything like that. I've never cheated on any partner, any spouses that I've ever had. That's just wasn't part of my reality. But it was in his mind what could happen. The ego began to make him feel the fear, the anger, the disappointment, the shame, the whatever it was that he felt when he found out he had been cheated on before. Ego began to activate those emotional responses in him because it associated wife, cheating, and I went from girlfriends, there was no fear of girlfriend cheating on him, to wife. When I was moved into that wife position, then the ego goes, oh, ding, 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 wife, cheat, fear. So he goes into his protective mode. There's nothing else he could do because the ego sends us into reaction. So he began to build the walls. He began to build the walls. And in the beginning, I was like, I'm not cheating, proof. Come with me to go with me everywhere. I'll video you, I'll text you, I'll whatever. I'll send you photos of what I'm doing, who I'm with. I was trying to prove. I was in like the defense attorney. I was defending myself, and his ego is the prosecutor, trying to say, no, this is what you're doing, fabricating stuff that was not happening. That's when I began to realize, in my defenselessness, my safety lies. I'm going to stop defending myself. If he wants to believe that I'm cheating, that's his path. He gets to have that experience. Can I love him no matter what? Instead of building up my walls to protect myself, can I acknowledge that nothing is going to be taken from me? Sure, life situations will change. Who I'm hanging out with may change. Where I live, yes, those things are going to change. But who is in here doesn't have to change. And I began to be very clear. I'm going to love you no matter what. I'm going to love you just as much as I loved you before you began to think that I was going to cheat on you. And I began to open up my heart back up. I began to remove the protective layers, the fears that would come in. Oh my God, what's this going to mean to my kids were living with us, my two youngest sons. And when I began to stop believing the thoughts about what could go wrong, and I began to accept, okay, he's just showing me where he's at in consciousness. Can I still love him? And I began to feel the peace in my heart that came from loving no matter what. Then I understood why forgiveness had to happen. I had to forgive him. He did not know what he was doing. He was reacting to emotional, unhealed childhood stuff that just got reenacted, because in his beliefs that wives cheat and I ascended to the position of wife, what else can he think could happen? Because the ego needs to be right. Then he couldn't see anything else. He couldn't question. He couldn't say, well, why is this happening here? Then it all got projected on me. And I became the one who could do that to him. So therefore, all he could do was protect himself and make sure to get rid of me. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? When you understand the way the ego plays its game, then you know how it's going to, the pieces are going to play out. Then it's like going to a movie. If you read the script, you know the ending. Well, when you understand the ego, it's like having the script to anything and everything that is reactionary, because the ego operates in the exact same way. Very, very predictable. This is why there are books written like what is that? I can't even remember the book, something about the art of war. You know exactly what to do with your opponent if you understand the script, and the script is written. Those who are attacking are predictable. And when you're not defending, then you can observe, and then you know exactly what's coming. So of course, it's like a movie. Life becomes like a movie. You can see what's happening. When you watch what's happening in the world of politics, it really is, it's a movie. You can sit back and watch the pieces and you see how everything is happening, because characters are playing roles to bring about the ability for us to see that it is time for an awakening. And if you pay attention to what's happening, you're not going to be afraid by what's getting revealed, especially in 2024. So with that, we complete this. So this is, again, as I said, episode 130. As usual, we hardly ever get past one paragraph in this beautiful teachings called A Course in Miracles. But if you want to go back and watch previous episodes, please go to my YouTube channel. They're all posted there. Today is what, 12/13. You can go back and watch them if you want. But thank you so much for joining us, especially to those who joined us for the first time today. If you enjoy this episode, share it with other people that you know. Let's help expand the awareness. If your throat chakra is open, then you don't mind sharing truth. And if you found a nugget here that was of help, then share it with other people that you know are seeking for the same level of information. And I don't have all the answers, but I do go to the source that is the answer. And I have found that A Course in Miracles is absolutely the most profound teachings to help anybody who really wants to wake up to the truth of who they are. Is the work easy? No. Is it simple? Yes. Forgive. Learn what that is all about, and you will experience the love and the peace that passes all understanding. So with that, I leave you. And if anybody wants to share, if they got a nugget or your experience being here, go ahead and unmute yourselves. Otherwise, as always, we'll say, I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. Miss Rose.
Thank you. Very beautiful.
Oh, thank you for being here, sister. So glad that you're here.
Finally made it.
Yay, yay. So lovely to see you. Crystal, you wanted to share something? Did you get a nugget here?
Oh, I always get lots of nuggets, but I had a vision of two things. When you have rain falling on your motor car and your windscreen wipers are going like this, and the water gets smeared and cleared. If you put something in the water, it forms little droplets, and the water just disappears. Doesn't, and it's the same as with a duck. When water falls on a duck, it just rolls off.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of feeling I get when you understand what's really going on with the ego and with everything that's been trying to attach to you. It starts slipping off.
Yeah.
When you are connected in the way that one practices to be connected with one's guidance, and the more one's guided, you find the ways to just slip through all the mud and the stuff that gets slung around you. Not always easy for me, but
No,
I know that it works.
Simple. Yeah, it is that simple. It's like when we're operating from our ego, we're like Velcro. Everything sticks to us. But when we move into that alignment with God, we are like Teflon. Everything slides off of us. I mean, because why would you want to?
Yeah, Teflon. That's another one. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for that beautiful analogy. Appreciate it. And enjoy your beautiful country of South Africa. So good to see that visual behind you. All right, we'll see you all next week. Same time, same bat channel. Love you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.